Naomi Brockwell, it's a pleasure to meet you and to be here at Universidad de la Libertad speaking you at the Radical Innovation Summit.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great event so far.
Yes, it has. Thank you very much, and it's an honor to have you. Naomi, I gather your background originally, when you were studying in university, was in music.
Yeah, it wasn't in privacy, it wasn't in information technology, it wasn't in computer science or encryption or any of these things that I found myself. It was in classical music.
And there's a lot of individualism and a lot of the self there, right?
I think it's such a creative area. I think the overlap for me is probably just you have to be an obsessive person for either of these things.
Oh,
like
right.
To study music, you have to kind of be very able to just sit for long periods of time studying intricate details, like learning mixed series counterpoint and learning like to read, sight read in 7 clefs and all of these like strange things. And when I just became obsessed with the tech world and the privacy landscape and the decentralized tech world, that was at least the one thing that was able to transition over in skill set.
I see there's just so many, I think they're connecting vessels in many respects. There's just the complexity, the interplay between a lot of different actors and everything. But you become quite passionate, I guess, you become an educator.
Is another word.
Ranty?
You're more diplomatic than I am.
Well, I'm not sure about that, especially my friends wouldn't say that. But anyway, so as I was mentioning before we began this conversation, my background is in very much the standard economic system and from Bretton Woods onwards and 1970s and the transition to away from the gold standards, that sort of thing. So, I'm a deeply questioning person of everything that's crypto, and I'm very skeptical of everything. So please, I'd love you to walk me through how to think about this.
I actually got involved because I was studying economics. After I did classical music, I was studying economics, but different kind to you. So very much in the Austrian school. And then I ran an Austrian economics reading group in New York when I lived there for a while. But when I was interested in those ideas, my main passion was monetary policy. And again, it's probably going to be different to the worldview you're used to. I see a lot of dangers in governments controlling money because I see a lot of examples historically of that leading to the debasement of the currency, people's savings getting wiped away. So when Hayek first started talking about this idea of competing currencies, and he was very prescient actually. He gave this great interview, I remember, where he starts talking about like if we ever wanted to separate state and money in the future, we would have to do it in some roundabout way. It would have to kind of be done under the radar until it got to a stage where you couldn't really shut it down because he didn't see any other way. He saw the system being so entrenched that it was hard to push back. But he loved the idea of competing currencies and lots of historical examples of how that could create a flourishing society. And so when Bitcoin came along, I was very early. I created one of the first platforms that educated people about this, say over a decade ago, and it interested me because I was like, "Ooh, this might be that Hayekian idea of competing currencies. Like, is this a potential?" And I just looked at it in terms of censorship resistance. I just looked at it in terms of like how basically what Bitcoin did was it solved this long-standing computer science problem called the Byzantine generals problem. It was the first instance of this ever being solved. This idea of like, how do you have trust without having like a centralized entity that you may or may not be able to trust, And so being able to invent a technology where you could distribute trust and create a database where no single person has control, I was like, ooh, maybe this could work.
It's an elegant solution.
Exactly, an elegant solution. And so that's what got me interested in crypto. And I just started exploring how it might be used as a tool for freedom, looking at a lot of very oppressive regimes. At the time, Venezuela, it was really big in like 2013. A lot of crypto mining that was going on there before they kind of nationalized the mining and creating a national pool. But before that, it was being used as a lifeline for people, this alternative money where where people could buy things on Walmart in America for Bitcoin, after having just mined this in their basement, and then actually get access to medicine and clothing and food that they didn't otherwise have. So yeah, I think there's a lot of downsides to crypto. I think there's a lot of negative aspects. I think there's the volatility, for one, is just really difficult to have a money in society with that volatility. And yet for all of the downsides, I think it's an absolute necessity if you want to have a free society and the money system is controlled.
Thinking about what you're saying right now, I think that there's fiat currency and the regular currency we've been using evolved over centuries, and then especially from the 19th century, there was a long time and there were a lot of crises in the meantime. So this technology is all of, what is it, 18 years old?
Not quite even that old.
not even that old. So I think that we do need to have a lot of openness to these ideas, and like you said, I think it's a really elegant solution to this, and definitely a way to keep control of the supply away from, especially there are a few populist governments in the world, and that does seem to be a trend. So I definitely see the value in that very much.
Yeah.
Tell me about privacy coins and how they evolved and how the role that they're starting to play.
I think that in the future we won't have privacy coins as a name. I think everything will be required to have privacy, because we're starting to understand how dangerous just an open public ledger can be in terms of being able to see how much money someone has in their wallet, seeing their complete transaction history. It's interesting. The reason why privacy started to become my passion was I was looking at this decentralized tech. I was thinking, we finally turned the powers of control, and we could just try to balance the scales a little more back towards the individual, because we have all this decentralized technology right now. We've got 3D printers, and we've got, all of these different tools. Bitcoin was very exciting to me, and these different things that individuals could control, they could have sovereignty over. But then I realized, well, it doesn't matter if you have a protocol that's uncensorable. If the government doesn't want you to use it and they know you're using it, they'll target you. Even if they can't shut down the whole network, you're still at risk if you don't know how to use the internet privately. So I was seeing all this amazing innovation in society and thinking, what a wonderful future we will have when this gets into everyone's hands. And I soon realized, the first thing we need to do is teach people how to use the internet privately. If we live in a surveillance state, people won't get access to these tools. And it will be as good as being able to regulate them out of existence. So I got super interested in privacy as a protection mechanism to actually take advantage of the radical innovation, that we're seeing everywhere. Privacy coins definitely come into play there. You want to minimize the amount of information that makes its way onto the blockchain, because if you don't, you're betting against the progress of technology. If a government, their processing power, their patent recognition techniques, all of this gets better and better every year. And if you're creating a permanent record, this blockchain that will last forever of entire transaction graphs, they will be able to piece together everything about people's transaction histories. And if you to think that won't be an issue is to bet against the progress of technology, and that they will have that ability. So really, I got interested in privacy coins just from that standpoint. I want people to be protected if they want to use this technology. I'm connected with a lot of people in authoritarian regimes where this is a lifeline for them. If it's found out that they're earning money learning to code or something, they're not allowed to have a bank account because they're female, in certain parts of the world. Having the ability to protect themselves and just safeguard their lives is really important. So I try to teach people tools for internet privacy and then give them financial tools for privacy as well.
What do you see as the main difference between public actors and private actors? So for example, big tech's an issue, and I think that my perception of different waves of innovation, especially in the digital age, has been there comes a technology that decentralizes power and gives it back to individuals, and then individuals, or have other things to do. They get lazy, and then corporations take power away from them again. And then you have these consecutive waves of this. Do you think that'll happen with the blockchains, the different blockchains and blockchain technology in general?
Yeah, I think absolutely. If you look at the evolution of the internet, starting from Web 1.0, it was the idea of, wow, this peer-to-peer, we can connect with individuals over the other side of the world.
Share information.
Absolutely. It was this unbridled free landscape. Things that were inaccessible suddenly became accessible. It's very exciting. And everyone had their own blogs. It was like the era of, here is my website that I created. And even you didn't really have indexing tools, early on. There's a great episode of *Halt and Catch Fire* where he's going around, like, he's like, oh, you have a website? Give me the URL. Oh, you have a website? Give me and he created like a manual list of the URLs that existed.
I remember the time when it was just IP addresses.
I know. And so that world really converged because, like, to eliminate friction, it makes a lot of sense for a platform to just offer a service and say, hey, let's just converge. Everyone can have their own Facebook page, their own LiveJournal page, whatever it is, MySpace. And that convergence was interesting because suddenly the internet went from being this decentralized thing that was uncensorable to very censored and controlled with these hubs that could be choked at any time.
What was the acronym? Yet another highly organized, which was Yahoo.
Yeah, right, yeah. And so I think that now we're seeing the emergence of Web3 technology, which is the idea that how do we decentralize that back again. Yeah. It's always going to be, when this technology starts out like it's janky, there's a lot of friction. That's a huge issue. It's not reasonable to ask individuals to self-host every single thing that they do. And so we rely on, a specialization and using the abilities of other people so that we don't have to worry about things for ourselves. Not everyone needs to be a tech expert. They can use one of these companies and they can host things for them. With Web 3.0, we might have a beautiful scenario where we could get frictionless technology, get it to a state where people have that sovereignty and simultaneously don't have the friction. And that's the kind of the dream of Web 3.0. I would say right now, we're a far cry from it. It's just janky. But I love it. I love it. I think it's great for freedom. I'm enjoying, for me, it's exciting. It reminds me of early internet days, so I'm loving trying out these tools, but that's kind of who I am. I love tinkering with things, but I definitely am seeing a huge improvement in the tech, which is exciting. I think that Web 3.0 is going to be really promising when it comes to just global freedom. We're seeing huge crackdowns globally on internet. Whenever there's political unrest in India, for example, they'll just cut off the internet.
Just out in Iran.
Absolutely. Yes. They'll just block signals so that people can't access private communication. And I think that those choke points are really dangerous. We don't want certain entities having the power to control narratives, to control the ability to communicate, to control your freedom of access to information. It's just a dangerous situation that historically has proven to be scary, for individual rights. And so with Web 3.0 and this kind of new era of mesh technologies, Bluetooth mesh or Wi-Fi mesh, or you've got things like Meshtastic using short-range radios, and so it's really interesting technology that is kind of reinventing a new infrastructure of what we understand to be the internet, which is really just tech that connects different people, allows them to communicate, share information. So I'm very optimistic with everything that I'm seeing. I definitely see the dangers and obstacles ahead of us, and it's a fight. It's never easy when you have power struggles against entrenched interests and people who want to reclaim freedom, but I'm very optimistic because the tech that I'm seeing be developed every day is just so inspiring.
I suppose that the main objection to cryptos and privacy is about bad actors. That's one thing that I want to ask you about. The other one is if there's specific areas of concern, regulation that you are observing. I gather that obviously access to the internet in general.
Yeah, I think that internet technology is a neutral tool.
Yes.
Technology can be used for good or bad.
Yes.
And it's the same as anything else in society. Shoes can be worn by bad actors or good actors. Bad actors have mobile phones as well as good actors have mobile phones. When we focus on the tech itself as being the thing that we want to control or restrict, Usually it's not to stop bad actors. Usually it is just a control mechanism. I think that we're fed a lot of narratives that make us think otherwise.
Yes.
Usually we're told, you know, all of the worst things in society you can think of, and the child trafficking and drugs and, you know, terrorism. There are a lot of demons that are painted to try to justify control of tech. But again, it's not the tech that is the issue, it's the bad actors that are the issue.
Yes.
We should be targeting the bad actors, and there are so many vehicles for targeting them. When tech gets co-opted as that targeting tool, it ends up hurting like billions of innocent people globally who do need access to information, who do need freedom. I think that focusing on the criminal activity instead of the tech is important, because at the end of the day, criminals are using cars as getaway vehicles, and we're not regulating
like
cars.
clothing.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of a misdirect. A lot of it has to do with censorship of information. A lot of it has to do with you know, people saying, well, we don't want people to say bad things. Hate speech, laws against that. That's one of the big areas of internet control we're seeing right now. For me personally, I think that's the worst recipe for society. The best way to combat bad ideas is with better ideas. It's with having dialogues about this. And repression of ideas, I think, can get really scary. All it does is it makes these ideas fester. It makes them stronger than they otherwise would be.
I think we're in agreement. I think that when you empower individuals against bad actors and good actors and whatever, I mean, you're just empowering individuals.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful tool for that.
And I also hear people talk about AI, like maybe we should control it because bad actors might get control of this and use it for bad. I'm like, well, good actors might get control of this and use it to protect themselves. Are you going to deny like billions of people around the globe the ability to use powerful compute to protect themselves? Because the bad actors aren't going to listen to your regulations.
And I think that's a really good segue for the second question.
Right. So some regulation that I'm looking at right now, there's a lot of control on AI, which I think is problematic.
Yes.
I think that, like, I had a meeting not too long ago where it was with some government officials who were talking about how they want to regulate AI. Again, you know, is Russia going to listen to your regulations in America? Is China going to listen to them? No. And if all the threat actors you're worried about are from those countries, what are you actually solving? All you're doing is taking, you know, defensive weapons out of the hands of every individual in the country you purport to protect. And so making sure that people, like, I would rather see them spend their effort on defensive technology, use this powerful compute to figure out how to, you know, just bolster the privacy and security of every individual's machine. If that's what you're actually worried about, let's focus all our resources instead of putting these band-aids on a sieve. I'm seeing a lot of other regulation that's bad right now. Chat control in the EU is terrifying. Wanting to mandate backdoors in everything that we do is terrifying.
Yes.
Eliminating the ability for someone to have a private conversation is bad. I mean, you look at Iran, you mentioned it earlier, where you had brave women in the streets cutting off their hair and protesting because they're tired of being treated terribly. It's just like these egregious human rights violations that are going on. In order for people to, you know, meet and protest and you know, share ideas and actually create support to push back against this kind of authoritarianism, they need private means of communications. Now, the government acknowledged that, and that's why they banned Signal there. So, you know, organizations like mine created tutorials to teach people in other areas of the world how to create Signal proxy servers, so that even though the servers of Signal were blocked in Iran, people could connect to the proxy servers and still have private communication. It's just so important for a free society that we keep these tools alive and that we support all the people globally who need them as a matter of life and death.